I came home 2 hours early to surprise my pregnant wife. Instead, I found her standing in our front yard, wrapped tightly in another man's arms. I stood there in complete silence as he slowly pulled away, smiled through his tears, and gently rested his hand on her baby bump. Sophia didn't stop him. She closed her eyes and let him. At that moment, only one thought echoed inside my head. That baby isn't mine. I was ready to end my marriage that same day, but if I had walked over just 30 seconds earlier, I would have heard a conversation that could have saved us both. Instead, I chose to believe what my eyes saw, and that mistake almost destroyed my family forever. But before we start today's story, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. My name is Ethan Brooks, and I'm 35 years old. 3 months before that afternoon, life couldn't have been better. After years of trying to have a baby, my wife, Sophia Brooks, finally became pregnant. I still remember the day she handed me the pregnancy test. She was shaking so much she couldn't even speak. When I saw those 2 pink lines, I dropped to my knees and hugged her. We both cried. Not because we were sad, because we'd almost given up hope. From that day on, everything changed. I talked to our baby every night. I painted the nursery myself. I even argued with Sophia over baby names almost every weekend. She always laughed and said, "Can we at least find out if it's a boy or a girl first?" Those were the happiest days of my life. Then, everything started changing. It wasn't one big thing. It was hundreds of little things. Sophia became quieter. Sometimes I'd catch her staring out the window for several minutes without saying a word. If I asked what was wrong, she'd smile. "I'm just tired." Pregnancy could do that, I told myself. So I never pushed. A week later, I noticed something strange. Every afternoon around 4 o'clock, she'd step outside with her phone. She never took calls inside anymore. Whenever I opened the front door, she'd quickly end the conversation. One evening, I jokingly asked, "Who keeps stealing my wife every afternoon?" She forced a little laugh. "Spam calls." I smiled, but something about that answer didn't feel right. The next morning, I left for work as usual. About 20 minutes later, my boss called. "The client meeting has been postponed." Perfect. I decided to surprise Sophia with breakfast. I bought her favorite blueberry muffins and drove home. As I turned onto our street, I noticed a black SUV parked across from our house. I'd never seen it before. I didn't think much of it until I walked through our gate. That's when I saw them, Sophia and a man I'd never met. She was crying in his arms. He held her carefully, almost protectively. Then he slowly stepped back, placed his hand on her stomach and whispered, "I'm so sorry." I couldn't hear anything else. The blood rushed to my head. The muffins slipped from my hands and hit the ground. Neither of them noticed me. I turned around, walked back to my car, and drove away. I don't even remember where I went. For almost 3 hours, I just drove. My mind kept replaying the same image. His hand on my wife's baby bump. That wasn't normal. No stranger does that. No friend does that. Only someone who believes that baby belongs to him. I wanted another explanation. I begged myself to find one, but every road led to the same destination: betrayal. When I finally returned home that evening, Sophia was making dinner. She smiled the moment she saw me. "You're home early." I looked at her face. The same woman I'd loved for years. The same woman who promised we'd never keep secrets from each other. Suddenly, she felt like a stranger. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," that one word tasted like poison. She walked over and kissed my cheek. For the first time in our marriage, I stepped back. She looked confused. "Ethan, I'm just tired." That night, neither of us slept much. She thought I didn't notice. But around 2 in the morning, she quietly got out of bed. I waited until she left the room, then I followed her. She was sitting alone in the living room, crying. Her phone was in her hand. A few seconds later, it lit up. A message appeared. "We can't hide this much longer." Before I could read who sent it, she quickly deleted the notification. I walked back to the bedroom before she noticed me. The next few days became unbearable. She kept leaving the house around the same time every afternoon, always with a different excuse. "I need fresh air. I'm visiting the pharmacy. I forgot a few groceries." But she'd return with almost nothing. No shopping bags, no medicine, nothing. One afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I followed her. She drove only 10 minutes away. Instead of stopping at a store, she parked outside a quiet house on the edge of town. 5 minutes later, the same black SUV arrived. The same man got out. This stayed hidden behind a large oak tree. I watched them talk. Sophia cried. The man cried too. Then he handed her a thick white envelope. She hugged him. Not like lovers. Not passionately. It looked painful, as if both of them were carrying the same terrible secret. For one brief moment, I almost questioned everything I'd been thinking. But then, he gently touched her baby bump again, and every doubt disappeared. I drove home before she did. That evening, I decided I couldn't live with the lies anymore. As soon as she walked through the front door, I looked her straight in the eyes. "Who is he?" The grocery bag slipped from her hands. Oranges rolled across the kitchen floor. I don't know what you're talking about. Stop lying." She went completely pale. "You've been meeting him for weeks. Silence. I saw him holding you. More silence. I saw him touching your stomach, her eyes instantly filled with tears. Ethan, is he the father? She stared at me as if I'd stabbed her. What? The baby. My voice cracked. Tell me the truth. She started crying so hard she could barely breathe. No. Then explain. I can't. Why? Because I promised. Promised who? She shook her head. I can't tell you. I laughed bitterly. So you're protecting him? I'm protecting. She suddenly stopped speaking. Protecting who? I shouted. She covered her mouth, as if she'd almost revealed something she wasn't supposed to. I grabbed my jacket. She ran toward me. Ethan, please don't leave. I looked into her tear-filled eyes. I've spent 5 years trusting you. She reached for my hand. I love you. I slowly pulled my hand away. If you loved me, you would have told me the truth. I walked out of the house. Just as I reached my car, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I answered. A calm male voice said, Mr. Brooks. I immediately recognized it. It was the same man I'd seen hugging my wife. Before I could say a word, he quietly said, if you really want to know why I've been meeting Sophia, come to St. Matthew's Church tomorrow morning at 9. My heart pounded. I gritted my teeth. Why should I? There was a long silence. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. Because if you don't come, your wife will spend the rest of her life hating herself, and you'll never forgive yourself for what you're about to believe. The next morning, I arrived at St. Matthew's Church 20 minutes early. I barely slept the night before. Every possible explanation had played through my head. None of them made sense. The church parking lot was almost empty. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly, my fingers hurt. At exactly 9 o'clock, the same black SUV pulled in. The man stepped out alone. He looked at me for a few seconds before quietly saying, "Thank you for coming." I slammed the car door. "Stop wasting my time. Who are you? What do you want from my wife? And why do you keep touching my child?" The man's eyes filled with sadness. "My name is David Harper. I don't care. You will." He motioned toward the church. "Please, just give me 10 minutes. I've already given you too much." I turned to leave. Then he said something unexpected. "I knew your father." I froze. Slowly, I turned around. "My father died 12 years ago. I know. I was there the day he passed away." My heart skipped. "That's impossible. He never told you about me. Why would he?" David lowered his head. "Because he made me promise never to contact you." For a moment, I forgot all about Sophia. "What are you talking about?" He reached into his jacket and carefully removed an old photograph. It showed my father, much younger, standing beside David. Both of them were smiling with their arms around each other's shoulders. I stared at the picture. I'd never seen it before. "They were best friends," David said quietly. "When your father became sick, I stayed with him almost every day." I looked up. "If that's true, why hide it?" David took a deep breath. "Because your father carried a secret." The words echoed inside my head. "A secret?" "He believed some truths only cause pain." I shook my head impatiently. "What does any of this have to do with my wife?" David's expression changed. "Everything." Before I could ask another question, a familiar voice came from behind me. "Ethan." I turned around. "Sophia." She stood at the church entrance with tears running down her face. She looked exhausted, as if she hadn't slept all night either. "You followed me?" I asked. She slowly nodded. "I knew he'd call you." "You knew?" She looked at David, then back at me. "I'm sorry." I laughed bitterly. "You keep saying you're sorry, but you never tell me why." She took one step closer. "I wanted to." "Then why didn't you?" "Because I gave my word." She nodded. "Yes." The anger I'd been holding inside finally exploded. "You chose a stranger over your husband." "No, I was trying to protect you." "Protect me from what?" Sophia burst into tears. "From losing the happiest months of your life." I frowned. "What does that even mean?" Neither of them answered. David quietly said, "Come inside. I've had enough secrets. This one can't be told out here." Against every instinct, I followed them. Inside the church, everything was silent. Sunlight poured through the stained glass windows. David led us to the front pew. Then he carefully placed the white envelope I'd seen earlier onto the bench. "Ethan, everything inside this envelope belongs to you." I opened it. The first thing I saw was a hospital report. Then another. Then another. None of them made any sense. "What am I looking at?" "Sophia couldn't even look at me," David answered. 3 months ago, Sophia came to see me. Why? Because she found something. My heartbeat quickened. "What?" David pointed toward the reports. "Read the first page." My hands trembled. Halfway down the page, one sentence caught my eye. "High probability of a serious congenital heart condition detected in the fetus." The world seemed to stop. I looked at Sophia. "What?" She covered her face. "I didn't want you to see that report." My voice cracked. "Our baby." She nodded through tears. "The first specialist believed our baby might not survive after birth." I couldn't breathe. "No." I thought they were wrong. I kept searching. David quietly continued. "I work with families whose unborn children are diagnosed with rare heart conditions. I stared at him. You're a volunteer. I help parents find specialists. Suddenly, pieces started falling into place. The meetings, the envelopes, the tears. But one question still remained. If that's true, why keep it from me? Sophia finally looked into my eyes. Because you were finally happy again. She started crying even harder. After everything we'd been through trying to have a baby, I couldn't watch you spend the pregnancy believing our child might die. So I kept hoping another doctor would prove the first one wrong. I stood there speechless. Every accusation I'd thrown at her echoed inside my head, but there was still something I couldn't understand. I looked at David. Then why were you touching her stomach? He smiled sadly. My wife lost our daughter before she was born. My family started a small charity after that. Whenever frightened parents come to us, we remind them their baby deserves love, no matter what tomorrow brings. The room became completely silent. Then David said one sentence that shattered me. The last doctor finally called yesterday. I looked at him. What did he say? David slowly smiled. He believes the first diagnosis was wrong. I felt hope for the first time in days. But David's smile faded. There's one more appointment this afternoon, and until those final test results come back, no one knows whether your baby is completely safe. My knees nearly gave out. Sophia reached for my hand. This time, I didn't pull away. I couldn't stop staring at Sophia. The woman I'd accused of destroying our family had been carrying a burden so heavy that she chose to carry it alone. My throat tightened. I'm sorry. The words barely out. Sophia wiped her tears. I never wanted you to apologize. I only wanted our baby to have one happy parent while we still had hope. I buried my face in my hands. Every lie she'd told, every secret meeting, every tear suddenly made sense, not because she'd betrayed me, because she'd been terrified. David quietly stood up. I'll wait outside. As soon as he left, the church became completely silent. I slowly turned toward Sophia. Why didn't you trust me? She looked at me with red, exhausted eyes. I did trust you. Then why hide something this big? She took a shaky breath. Because I know you. You love with your whole heart. And when you're scared, you stop living. She wasn't wrong. When my mother died years earlier, I'd shut myself away for months. She remembered that. I couldn't watch you spend this pregnancy waiting for our baby to die. So every time another doctor gave us a little hope, I kept thinking, maybe tomorrow everything will be okay. I felt tears running down my face. I should have been beside you. You shouldn't have faced this alone. Sophia smiled through her tears. I wasn't alone. I had our baby. For the first time in days, I wrapped my arms around her. This time, she cried against my shoulder. Not because she was hiding something, because she finally didn't have to anymore. That afternoon, we drove together to the Children's Medical Center. For the first time, we walked inside hand in hand. Neither of us spoke much. Every second felt like an hour. The specialist performed another detailed scan. The room was silent except for the sound of the machine. The doctor studied the monitor for several long minutes. He called another specialist inside. Then another. My heart sank. 3 doctors. Couldn't be good news. Sophia squeezed my hand so tightly it almost hurt. Finally, the senior doctor smiled. I think we have an answer. Neither of us breathed. He turned the monitor toward us. The shadow seen on the first scan isn't a heart defect. I blinked. What? He smiled again. It was caused by the baby's position. The heart looks completely normal. For a second, neither Sophia nor I reacted. It didn't feel real. The doctor laughed softly. I've never seen 2 parents so quiet after receiving good news. Sophia suddenly burst into tears, happy tears. I held her as tightly as I could. Our baby was healthy. The nightmare we'd been living for weeks was finally over. A few days later, I invited David to our house. This time, I opened the front door before he knocked. Without saying a word, I hugged him. I'm sorry, he smiled. You don't owe me an apology. I judged you without knowing the truth. He gently shook his head. You were protecting your family. Any husband would have done the same. We spent hours talking. He told me about the daughter he and his wife had lost years earlier. He explained why he started helping frightened parents. He wasn't the villain I'd imagined. He was simply a man trying to keep another family from experiencing the same pain he'd lived through. Before leaving, he handed me a small knitted baby blanket. My wife made this before our daughter passed away. I've been waiting years to give it to someone. Sophia couldn't stop crying. Neither could I. 4 months later, our son entered the world, healthy, strong. The first time I held him, I remembered the terrible words I'd once whispered to myself. That baby isn't mine. I kissed his tiny forehead. I'm so sorry. He wrapped his tiny fingers around mine. At that moment, I realized something. Children don't need perfect parents. They need parents who learn from their mistakes. Today, whenever I look at Sophia, I don't remember the lies. I remember the fear behind them. And whenever I see our son laughing in the backyard, I silently thank David. Because if he hadn't answered Sophia's call, we might have lost our marriage, even though we never lost our child. Sometimes, the biggest mistake we make isn't believing a lie. It's believing we've already discovered the truth. The greatest danger isn't what your eyes see. It's the story your mind creates before your heart knows the facts. Trust should never be blind, but neither should suspicion. Sometimes the truth is far more painful and far more beautiful than we could ever imagine. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what you would have done if you were in my place. See you in the next story.